Within the Augustinian family, one would remember on this day a saint not sufficiently known, Nicholas of Tolentino. His middle-aged parents were childless, and they went to implore at Bari the gift of a child through the intercession of the saint honoured there, Nicholas, who was also patron of Russia. And the result was this miraculous conception. And he was a holy child from the beginning. He heard an Austin friar one day preaching in church on a gospel text. What does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? And on another text inviting to follow Christ and to take up one's cross, denying oneself. He understood completely that that meant entering, in his case, what he saw before him, and he became himself an Austin friar. He studied, was ordained, became novice master, served in houses here and there, but settled in the house where he is known because of the name Tolentino forevermore. And there he excelled, not noisily but deeply. A powerful preacher, swaying souls, very good to the poor, sacrificing himself completely, and that trait came through immediately when he entered. And also this mystical trait, he would go into some kind of ecstatic mode at the altar, and he knew what was happening in that realm. Indeed, he was given mystical intuitions. For instance, one Austin friar was deceased and in purgatory and implored the grace of Holy Mass for his soul. He replied to the deceased that he had the obligation to celebrate for another intention that week, the conventual Mass, and the insistence was such, because he was shown purgatory and all his hands pleading for help, that he went to his superior, and the superior heard what had happened and gave permission. And at the 7th day, that same Austin friar appeared to him in great glory. It became the beginning of a tradition within the order of celebrating those 7 consecutive Masses. This saint reminds me of many saints who've had similar intuitions at the altar. One Eastern saint said that if one knew what was happening at the altar, one would kiss the very dust near it after a celebration. St Philip Neri would go into ecstasy regularly. Indeed, the altar boy had to come back an hour or two later when he was coming back down. And I was able to celebrate not long after ordination at the very altar where he celebrated. It was a private altar in the oratory itself, not in the main body of the church, very intimate therefore, and unchanged to this day. And it occurred to me that I had to take to heart what these great saints had intuited, that here one is outside time, and one must not allow this to become so limited by human factors that it is actually forgotten for what it is. One is there with the angels, and the angels don't look at their watches. One is therefore available to him, and much depends on the quality of interiority if it is to bear fruit in the soul. Preparation, calm, and thanksgiving. All those are missing in many of our modern celebrations. If we're not careful, they become performances, and therefore the dynamic is changed completely and contaminated. Gratuitous praise is more like that of the angels, who day and night go around the altar singing Hagios, Hagios, Hagios. After celebrating that Mass, soon after ordination, I wrote these words, moved by the example of St Philip Neri. here, even here. Latin Mass in St Philip Neri's private chapel, where he would celebrate for 2 hours. Is this the place where ecstasy would be a little off the ground? Is this where stood, on thinnest air, one given eyes to see, beyond the veil that shields this flesh and blood? O Philip, is it true that thou wouldst come and linger for a lengthy while at this strange task, ne'er given to angels, but to some, and only some, that bear this mark of bliss? O Lamb of God, here slain upon a word, teach me to wait a while where some have been alone with thee before, where some have heard, where some have heard and seen what was not seen by common eye. For I have time to stand a little longer on this strangest land. Questo santo, che esiste a causa di un miracolo di concepimento dopo la preghiera intensa dei genitori sterili a Bari, tramite dunque San Nicola, di cui ha preso il nome, e un modello per i sacerdoti. Ha sentito questa parola durante un'omelia in chiesa: a cosa serve guadagnare tutto il mondo e perdere tutta la sua anima? E anche, se vogliamo seguire Gesù, ci vuole questo rinnegamento totale di sé. E ha capito che doveva entrare proprio in questo ordine da dove usciva questo sacerdote che predicava, gli agostiniani. È diventato anche lui un gran predicatore, si sacrificava, si negava per gli altri in comunità e anche per i poveri, ma predicava forte. Aveva esperienze mistiche all'altare, brillava e sapeva alcune cose. Per esempio, un altro fratello morto è apparso a lui chiedendo preghiera, una messa. Per lui non poteva celebrare, aveva altra intenzione, però fu mostrato a lui il purgatorio. Dopodiché ha chiesto la permissione e il superiore ha capito il discorso. E dopo 7 giorni di messe è apparso l'altro a lui, fu l'inizio di questa tradizione agostiniana di celebrare 7 messe per i fratelli. E questo è un invito anche per noi di capire cosa si tratta quando si celebra la Santa Messa e la forza che anche supera il cosmo. Alcuni santi anche orientali hanno capito la cosa. Uno che diceva che se uno sapesse cosa succede all'altare, uno bacerebbe anche la polvere dell'altare. E ho trovato questo anche stamani che mi colpisce dal cardinale Giacomo. La Messa è un universo, le cui ricchezze nascoste sono inesauribili. Purtroppo gli uomini che sanno cercare e trovare i tesori di energie misteriose che il Creatore ha posto nel nostro pianeta spesso non sanno e più spesso non vogliono scavare nel mistero della Messa. Cardinale Giacomo del Carlo ha detto bene, se si aprisse un po' gli occhi uno vedrebbe molto di più che pane e vino.
Lodate Dio, schiere beate del cielo. Lodate Dio, gente di tutta la terra. Cantate a Lui, che l'universo creò. Somma sapienza e splendore. Cantate a Lui, che tanto gli uomini amò. Da